Step in my dojo, you
Step in my dojo, you
step in my.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about checkerboarding, and I want to talk about the Purple Cow folder, okay? Because these are two very, very crucial concepts to understand, and they're kind of related. Okay, so first I want to talk a little bit about checkerboarding. Okay, so checkerboarding is basically a concept that I've kind of developed by observing the way a lot of electronic music is composed, and it's kind of an extension of the call and response sort of dynamic that you see in all kinds of music, So like imagine that you're watching a band, right? And there'll be a moment where, say, the horn player will get into a battle with the guitar player, and they'll be kind of trading off riffs. Like the horn player will do a little solo, and then the guitar player will do a little solo, and then the horn player will do a little solo, etc., back and forth, right? Well, basically, that's kind of called call and response, or question and answer. And you'll see this in in turntablism. Like if you've ever studied any of Kubert's stuff, he teaches scratching by he'll do a scratch and then you do the same scratch, and then he does a scratch and then you do the same scratch, and it's a great way to learn scratching. But basically, outside of a band context, outside of a live music context, when you're in the context of composing in electronic music, you got to think of yourself as you're essentially like acting as a conductor of group music, and especially this is especially important to think about when you're putting together percussion, right? Because I always used to think about putting my percussion together like it would be something that a drummer could play, right? But really, you can learn a lot more about how to compose electronic music percussion from studying like African group drumming percussion, like ensemble drumming or whatever. And it's the same thing like when you're composing a song. It's much more like composing for a group of players than composing for one person, right? So when you're in a group or you're in a band where it's a group context, one of the worst things is when everybody is trying to solo at once, right? You can't have a band where everybody is soloing all at the same time, because it just sounds like nonsense. It sounds like chaos. It sounds like hard to process as a listener, right? So in the ill methodology, I mentioned the magic number 7 plus or minus 3, which is why basically most people can hold 7 plus or minus 3 chunks of information in their head at once, which is why typically phone numbers are around 7 digits plus the area code, right? Well, it's the same thing with a song. Typically if you have more than 7 kind of sound groups at once, it's too much. And of that 7, you can only really have one central feature sound at a time, right? And this is why a lot of the best electronic music compositions, you'll have the rhythm section, right, which will be composed of kick, snare, clap, some hats or shakers, right, crash or splash at the beginning of the phrase, a rise at the end of the phrase, sub bass, a turnaround that comes at the very, very end of the phrase, that's 7, and then you have the one lead riff over top of those 7 sounds. But the rhythm section usually has a maximum of 7 kind of elements happening at once, and then you have one really cool thing happening over top of that group, right? So that's all well and good if you're trying to make songs that only have one really cool lead, and like when you're dancing too, it's basically like the 7 sounds in the rhythm section, right? They're kind of they're basically like what your body is grooving to and just kind of holding space in and keeping you moving. And then there's that one like rip and riff over top that you're dancing to, right? Like just think of like any of the kind of classic pieces of dance music, or like, like Sandstorm or whatever, it's like one really killer simple riff over a rhythm section composed of approximately 6 sounds. That's all you really need, right? But what happens when you want to have more than one lead sound, right? Well, this is where checkerboarding comes in. So kind of classic examples of checkerboarding would be like, let's say you're doing the preset shredding recipe, and the preset shredding recipe is essentially where you make one really cool MIDI pattern that you love, and then you cycle that MIDI pattern through a bunch of different instruments, and then those instruments will take turns. So you could have that MIDI pattern be down an octave, and then up an octave, and then down an octave with a different patch, and then up an octave with a different patch, and then down an octave backwards, and then up an octave backwards. But you wouldn't put all of those at once, right? Because it would be too much to have them like layering. You'd want them to take turns, right? So the preset shredding recipe is essentially checkerboarding different takes of MIDI that are with the same riff, like different patches of the same riff, and they would checkerboard, right? But you don't have to just takes of MIDI that are with the same riff, like different patches of the same riff, and they would checkerboard, right? But you don't have to just checkerboard like the same sound. You can do it in a more call and response way as well, where let's say like if you listen to dubstep, like especially American dubstep, they'll checkerboard the basses, so guys like Excision or Skrillex or whatever, they'll have a bunch of different bass sounds that are working and together, and this is where it kind of goes beyond call and response and comes into checkerboarding, because call and response implies a dynamic between like the call, the response, the call, the response, right? And that's it's kind of like when I was talking about the preset shredding recipe, the down an octave, up an octave, down an octave, up an octave, that would be a kind of call and response checkerboard, right? But you can checkerboard sounds where there's maybe 4 or 5 different voices happening, as long as they all take turns. So you could have a bass line that's like boo, wop 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 wop, ging ging ging, gang 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 gang, chicka boo, wop 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 wop, boo boo, and all those sounds, as long as they're basically taking turns being that central focus sound on top of the rhythm section, then the checkerboard will work, right? And one of the most common problems that I see in people when they're just starting out is that they want to make the checkerboard be, they don't want to checkerboard their sounds. They get what's I call the layer cake phenomenon. And the layer cake phenomenon is basically where you make your rhythm section, you got those sounds, okay? Kick, snare, clap, hats or shakers, right? Splash on the downbeats, sub bass underneath, and then a riser at the end leading into a turnaround. Okay, that's the rhythm section. Those 7 sounds. That's like pretty much the essential composition of the rhythm section in mostly any kind of bass music or electronic music. Like you wouldn't have a sub if it was like like a techno track or a house track. Usually the kick is kind of holding down the whole low end. But basically those 7 sounds are essentially forming the composition of the rhythm section, and then you'd have other sounds on top. And before you're introduced to checkerboarding, right, you'll end up going, okay, so let's have some chords and then a lead over top and then like a rhythm guitar, and basically you just kind of keep adding layers of loops on top of the rhythm section. And it seems like it would make it sound like complicated and cool because there's like lots of sounds happening, but the actual effect that happens when you do that is that it just flattens everything out and it makes everything sound really static and really kind of like boring, because basically when these loops are just coming in and out on top of each other, you don't get that feeling like anything could happen, that the composition is dynamic, that the sounds are interacting with each other. It's just like, here comes another loop. Okay, you're used to that loop. Here comes another loop. Okay, you're used to that loop. Here comes another loop. And the composition, like, yeah, you might numerically have a lot more sounds in there, but that doesn't mean it's not boring, right? And the shit can get really, really boring. And honestly, boring is like the worst thing you can be. And music can be technically very nice and still be boring. Okay, so checkerboarding is a great way to make the music be less boring, because it makes it dynamic, and you can make a composition where there's basically the rhythm section and one lead at a time, but have it be like switch, 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 switch. And you can still numerically have all those cool sounds in the composition, but by making them take turns, you're making your lead be this like crazy checkerboard lead, instead of it being like this layer cake with like, what a patch that's called lead in your library over top. That doesn't make it. And like when I say a lead, I don't just mean a synth patch that's called a lead, right? Because a synth patch that's like, you can do really boring shit with a synth patch that's called a lead. I mean something that's like striking, something that's vivid, something that stands out. It's got a lot of movement to it. It's got a lot of, the notes are cool, or maybe, this synth patch has like a bunch of racks with like macros glitching it out and moving it all over the place, etc. To make it like striking, to make it clear that, that's the central focus of the composition. So I've noticed a lot of people get this layer cake thing happening, where there's just all these layers one on top of each other that are kind of static and not really interacting, and the kind of like, there's just numerically there's just too many sounds going on, and then so you got to cut the cake, and that's where checkerboarding comes in. When you cut the cake, that's when you're putting in hard silences before your turnarounds. You're putting in little, like, you can put a turnaround on the downbeat too. A lot of really good artists will have like let's say you have you're coming to the beginning of the phrase, and it's like 3 and 4 and like you could have like put the brakes on and then drop it on the 2, for example. That's that's another good thing you can do. But basically, having these little turnarounds, having hard silences, having really big sounds where that sound is like the center of the composition and then gone, and then another sound is the center of the composition, and you basically have the nice minimal rhythm section with one lead sound at once. You're going to be able to get that lead sound way louder, and you're going to be able to get that rhythm section way louder because there's just numerically less sounds happening at the same time. Okay, so imagine now that you have a checkerboard, but it's all made out of synth presets that are from a commercial sound library, right? And like, let's say your track, it's all made out of like Vengeance or Black Octopus samples, which are all great samples. No, I'm not dissing them. I'm just saying that they're the samples that everybody is using, right? So let's say that you have a composition that is a well-executed composition that's made entirely... composition that is a well-executed composition that's made entirely out of Vengeance samples, that's made entirely out of Black Octopus samples, etc., etc., etc. And then you've checkerboarded everything. It could still be boring, right? Because it kind of like, if you're just using the same sorts of synth presets that everybody is using, and you're using the same sorts of samples that everybody's using, it kind of doesn't matter what chords you use, and it kind of doesn't matter how weird you make your melodies. It's still going to sound like Serum and Vengeance samples and stuff. It's still going to sound like everybody else, right? So if you want to really make your music stand out, you need to have some purple cow checkers. Okay, so the purple cow is I borrowed this from Seth Godin. I mentioned it in the first ill methodology, but basically he's talking about what makes things memorable, what makes things remarkable, and as remarkable as in worth discussion, worth making a remark about. Okay, and you know, in the past we used to think that we could just like blast people with advertising and just blanket them with this bland crap and it would inevitably be successful. But now, you know, the world is so replete with advertising that there's no way to cut through that just by blanketing people with advertising, you know. And it's the same thing with tracks. Like the market is flooded. You can't just make a sick track and have people care. You know, like it could be, you know, well executed. You could make it technically great. You know, everything could be in key. The mix down could be great. But if it's boring, if you're using all the same kind of samples as everybody else, if you're using all the same patches as everybody else, you know, if you're not like really breaking the rules and doing things that are exceptional and remarkable, nobody's going to care, right? So here, back to Seth Godin, back to the purple cow. Let's say you're driving down the highway and you pass by a cow. So what? You know, you see a cow once, you don't have a cow-related problem in your life. You're not like a cow geek. You don't care about cows. You keep driving, right? But then you see a purple cow. You're like, holy shit, that's a purple cow. You stop the car, you get out, you can't believe that it's a purple cow. You like get up close, take a selfie with the purple cow. It's your new Facebook profile photo. Everyone's like, oh my God, a purple cow. Someone posts it on Reddit, it gets upvoted. Everybody's talking about the purple cow. Did the purple cow spend any money on marketing? No, it was a purple fucking cow. So it's something worth discussing. It's something that's worth talking about, right? So I've been encouraging many of you to develop a purple cow folder. And I got to say, this is a super crucial part of what is going to break you out of making music that is technically proficient but boring, and into making music that sounds like you know, where you have your own identity, right? So I definitely I encourage you to systematically break rules for sure. The Purple Cow folder is definitely in addition to making your own instruments, the Purple Cow folder, this is all sounds that are not commercially available, that are striking, that are meaningful, that are memorable, and that you could name a track after, right? And that means that these are sounds that you could describe in words, okay? So just like a sweet bass sound, it's hard to have a conversation about, oh yeah, it's that song with that sweet bass sound, you know? That's not like something that you could really name a track after, right? But let's say, you know, you have a really cool one-liner from a vocal that's like a bumper sticker, you just hear it once and it's in there, right? That would be a really good thing to put in your Purple Cow folder. Or let's say you have an instrument that you made that's entirely made out of really high definition samples of water that are it sounds like water, but it's a playable, psychologically intense glitch instrument made out of water. You could say, oh, have you heard that Artist X sound, you know, the one with the crazy water instrument? Or it could be samples from a movie that you particularly like, or maybe you're those door stops where they go that sample. People are gonna remember that sample. Or a cash register opening a can of Coke. If you built a whole song around the pops of champagne corks. Just sounds that you can name, sounds that stand out.